Okay, now it looks like it's working. Sorry guys, Ben here from Second Dynasty. It's Friday, and we should be rolling now. Thank you for joining me if you're in the chat. Let's see. Hi to the chat, so hi, or hey, till Anders, Shergol, Tamsin, Carbonhead, Stash I Am, Solo Spirit, Thomas Merrick. Yeah, hi and welcome. It has been a busy week. Production-wise, not a whole heap happening. I don't know how John's doing with the miniatures. I haven't heard from him for a couple of days. But I know that he is working on the miniatures for the Ian Stead style models. And yeah, I've been playing around all week with a few things. I do have some actually pretty major news. This is not going to be an official announcement, but you guys are going to hear it here first. Albin has been working on the apparently when we were doing the stretch goals for the small craft and we talked about the passenger module, we also said we'd do additional passenger modules for all of the craft. Albin is brimming with glee, as you can tell. And what have I been up to? I've been working on the shuttle and some other stuff. A lot of it actually, a lot of emails back and forth. And so those, I got a rather weird email at the start of the week from Mongoose Publishing, informing me that they were going to be taking over the license that I have with Mark Miller. Mark Miller is an older gentleman and would like to retire. So it's more related to that than anything else. But as a consequence of that, it will affect my license. Now, it doesn't void my license. It will last until 2025. But after, talking to Matthew a little bit, it looks like we will be able to do some Mongoose designs for Traveller. Starting with, we intend to have a campaign at the end of June for the upcoming 5th Frontier War campaign, and we will do some miniatures to tie in with that and a couple of vehicles. So yeah, exciting stuff. The Mongoose character designs are by far the best in any edition of Traveller. The art keeps getting better and better, and we have some chance to also impact how we can bring to life some of the vehicles and actually have it tie into an active Traveller game and campaign. So this is all still in development. We haven't actually set the specific date or anything like that, and this is not our broader announcement, but you heard it here first. So we'll see. I was kind of at the point where it's like, okay, we might do a miniatures campaign or something like that later on in the year with some Travellers, some aliens and that sort of thing, more specific to the Traveller universe. But, there would not be a big Kickstarter campaign for Traveller this year. Well, I'm wrong. Because, Mongoose, man. It's going to be awesome. So, we'll see what kind of... we're waiting on the PDFs too, so that we can get in on that action and look at some of the art. It is what it is, and it seems pretty much all positive. So, looking forward to that. Which means that we've actually been able to plan our year. So I can announce actually now, today, this is kind of the point of this stream, that on the 26th of April, that is if you're in the US, 426, we are releasing Soul Survivor, Starship VI.
Oh.
So Starship VI is actually going to be in 2 parts. We're going to have this shuttle, which as you can see I've been working on. I've changed the environment a little bit, but you can see there's some increased detail in the hull plating. I'm about to move on to the interior. That's what we're going to work on today, I think. But you can see it's starting to get there. I'm still going to add more detail. I'm not 100% happy with everything. You can kind of see there's this front grille on, but you know, still some undetailed panels. We might need some hatches. At the moment, everything is also symmetrical. And I'm going to keep it mainly symmetrical aside from these pipes. And we have found a new technique for doing pipes very nicely. I'm going to demonstrate that today on stream. And yeah, in general, we've been mucking around a lot with Mid-Journey too to kind of sort of set up the look and feel I'm trying to go for. So it's very fresh, but I've reached out to Papsicles, but he's very busy at the moment. Congratulations to Papsicles, he's now a father, a little baby girl.
Congrats, man.
Consequently, he does not have time for commissions, and if you actually look at his Patreon anyway, I don't think he has that much time. So I went to Kaioshiniku begging, and we are going to get some Soul Survivor miniatures done. And the sort of model look I'm going for is the sort of like our Ripley, Amanda Ripley, sort of, not clone, but heroine, if you will, in a variety of poses and outfits. So we're also doing new hypersleep tubes, which I will show you shortly. And this time...
it's personal.
It's personal. I haven't thought about lighting yet that blasted camouflage, but that's a good point. Maybe I'll bring in some STLs from ones that use globes for those. I don't think we will print and paint. We'll print this for sure. It's not going to be that much of a deal, but I don't know that we'll get time to paint it in time. Well, you never know. You never know. We do have Albin and...
He's here.
And we have Lisa Lott, of course, so we could potentially get that painted up in time, but April 26th is not that far away. So my aim is to actually do a Kickstarter. We're not, and then in very late June, possibly early July, but before July 4th, we are going to launch the tie-in campaign for Traveller, and then we will push back No-Stromo to probably late October. Sort of, I'd say the 3rd week of October, somewhere around there. So we've got enough breathing room between campaigns for people to have recovered, and we get it finished before Christmas, so that people still, have forgotten that they need to open their wallets soon. But yeah, that's our campaign schedule for this year. We're going to work with a new marketing company to try and improve our impact. We're going to try that out with Traveller, and Mongoose has also said, if it is a Mongoose tie-in, they are quite happy to help give it a push, which could be great. Yeah. Fantastic, in fact. Samantha Ridley. No, I'm going for an original character, and I'm thinking a female engineer in her... late 20s or something like that, but like someone who would be sensible aboard the ship, someone who's likely to be able to survive.
Who's proficient with flamethrowers?
No one's proficient with flamethrowers. But yeah, that's where we're at. I'm a little bit excited about that. I'm excited about how this thing is looking too. The only thing is, in the renders it looks pretty poor because of the block out of the interior, so I'd like to do something about that today. This still has a couple of weeks worth of production left on it before it's close to printable, although there is maybe 1 or 2 parts that approach printability at this point in time. It's all being done in these blocks, and if I unhide... I've got a lot of stuff going on in this now. I'm just going to unhide a couple of different layers here. You can kind of see I've brought in all the semiotics, and I've put in a few extra ones that we haven't used yet. These are simplified versions based on the ROM cob designs. This larger ship, like if we took this, and let me get onto my grid and make sure my grid's nice and small. Let's go for 2, maybe that's a little too small, but we'll see. I'm just going to move the pivot point of this thing down. And if I copy that over, you should be able to see that that matches perfectly to the larger version. Now the other thing too is if we move this, like make yet another duplicate and move it here, it should repeat itself like over and over again. I'm not sure if this is exactly on the right size section here, but why is that? Oh yeah, because I've gone on. That should have matched. Why did it not match? That's a bit of a bother. Oh, let's see what's going on here. I feel a bit of a fool saying that now. Is it because it takes 2 rounds or something? So I'm going to be looking for where the pivot point is going to intersect with our grid. So I think it's just a case of like we've gotten it a bit too high up. You can kind of see, I don't know, this should be looping. I don't know why it's not. This is bothering me quite a lot, if I'm honest. You can kind of see that the angle's right if we match it like so, but that clearly wasn't repeating, so I don't know yet. That's a worry. I thought I had this. Anyway, I'll look into it. But yeah, I want to show off the new Crow tube I'm working on. I've actually got a second type here, but I'm just adding some asymmetry to this design right now, so let's just isolate this thing, get a good look, and basically the lid has been designed. Sorry, we need to turn off our grids again. So it will be a separate piece, but also even the bed here, the idea is like once you get inside it, it sinks down to here, but when you get in it, it's like up here. So you climb on, get into position, it goes. Now this won't be animated, but I think we'll do 2 different versions of the bed, one that's open and one that's closed. And yeah, we've got our semiotics, we've got this little handhold, and actually you can see that there's this line here. So what's that line all about? Well, this is a NURBS curve. NURBS is an artifact of a bygone era. It's still in Maya, but basically it's made for making lines. And you can kind of see we don't have all of these like sharp angles yet. This is still, I'll probably take that out. But we've got these nice little pipes here, and actually if I deselect my geometry, I can select this curve here, and I think I haven't changed this yet. So yeah, you can see that this is actually tied to the NURBS curve. And this is something that is called a sweep mesh in Maya. It's a relatively recent edition. It's not a 2024 edition, I think it's a 2022 edition or something like that. But the old style of making pipes was rather intensive. There's a couple of different tactics you can take, but this one is really flexible with a built-in tool. See, we've got these lines going on. We're trying to get some nice shapes. We do need to add a bit of smoothness to these ones by the look of it. Did I just like harden this entire object or something? That looks a bit better. So yeah, that seems a bit smoother shaded. So will the That be smaller ships in 28mm or big ships in small scale? For what? Sorry, it's character miniatures. If you're talking about Traveller. I'd need to look at some of the newer small craft to determine if there's something that's good. But I would expect that the stuff that we're going to do is mostly military based. And again, this is extremely early days. This is like, I've gotten permission, or rather to mention whenever we're actually going to launch, but they prefer to see. See, the thing is, unlike with Mark, where basically in the Type S there's a lot of back and forth. After that, it was, I mean, it got to be impractical. When you work on a ship for 8 months, if you were going to get a sign-off on every single thing that you do, it would be a full-time job in and of itself. And it can't work that way. It doesn't work that way for us. And if I mean, Mongoose are probably going to be signing off on things a lot more than what Mark Miller was doing. I mean, for starters, nothing wrong with it, considering the fact that the man was semi-retired already. Mark, wouldn't answer emails on a daily basis. Sometimes it would take, days or weeks to hear back from him. Kind of impractical if you're waiting on feedback, right, in order to proceed. So, basically with Mongoose, that should be a quicker process. And on top of that, they are based, I believe, in the UK, which means we don't have that, 6-7 hour time difference. And that actually affects things more than you would think. So I'm trying to create some asymmetry here. You can kind of see that this is off to the side. I really want to, I do need to add some more details to this. But yeah, hopefully that process is a lot quicker. Since a lot of our stuff is going to be able to be based off Mongoose art, then we will fortunately be capable of just offering a hell of a lot more. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I think the Mongoose character designs are light years ahead of the older editions. That's one of the things that definitely has got going for it. And the time zone thing, they're only an hour behind us, which is great. I regularly get several emails in the morning, and right up until lunchtime I usually get an answer on things. Much more effective so far than when it was with Mark. Mongoose probably are going to have more to say about what we actually are able to produce, but because we will have art to work off, specific art, rather it won't be this edition wars thing of okay, go and find the best version of something. It should be fairly relevant. We'll still control what we do with input from them. If I don't know that we're going to do ships, but vehicles and that sort of thing, there's still going to have to be a certain degree of interpretation. A lot of the vehicle art that I've seen usually just has a single angle, so we're going to have to interpret, what's at the rear, what's the interior detail. They're like, yes, Albin, thank you. So for our part, we definitely need there to be some level of how to put it, some level of excitement on our part. So we have to be, I have to, at least that's how I work creatively, I have to be excited for what I'm doing to some degree. And we have to make it make sense for us too. Like we cannot have these, you know, big ships that take 8 months to make. That just isn't economically viable for us. So what I'm actually just gonna do here at the moment, before I continue talking, is I'm just gonna start reforming this very rough. Let's see, I need my grid up again. Display grid, and then we go into the settings, and I'll move this back to 16. There we go. Apply. Just double checking that. So when I move this now, you should see the line changing. Just double checking it's not still tied into this one. So I'm kind of looking to make this stick out, come along around here and go in here somewhere. So it's not meant to be in the exact same spot. Okay, that's not the one we want to move. This one is. It can be kind of difficult to figure out exactly what you're trying to change with these, but so that should be something like that. Maybe we can move that over a bit more, then move that back, tighten it up. So I'm just going to move these into a rough position of where I think it should be, and then we're going to look at the tools and see what they can accomplish. But yeah, so there's going to be a lot more control on Mongoose's end than Mark had, mostly just for practical reasons. But since we're working to Mongoose art, they're probably going to have less to say about the finished product because we have something to go off. So basically, they might approve what we're making, and then it's left a lot more up to us as to how we make it, if that makes sense. Ships themselves, I don't know that we'll get into that. We might. I would still argue for. I know the more recent stuff is more interesting, but they still there's still a incongruence between the deck plans for their ships and the exterior appearances of them. And that's going to be an issue whether it's Mongoose or if it is, a classic Traveller. So, I mean, we could potentially, what I would potentially suggest is that we use a Mongoose deck plan, provided that it is correct. And I'm only talking here because I can tell you one thing that has to happen for us to do ships again. We have to see a tremendously better response from the Mongoose campaign than we have seen in the past. Now that doesn't necessarily mean we have to make 5 times the money or something. Just that we need to be able to justify making Traveller ships again. We don't know even if we can justify making original content. All of the ships we've done in the last 2 years have been either Traveller ships or essentially revamps of older ships. And I would automatically assume that many people would think, no, I already have this ship. So, Delta, it did alright, but I mean, it was not going to be one of those campaigns that earns, half a year's income for us. Michael Tennery will buy the highest tier affordable. That's awesome. The Type R at 400 tons would be too big, I'd say. Although the thing is, it is a cylinder. That does help. But, I mean, we've already found out that cylinders, I would say the small craft, cylindrical craft in particular, they're the ones that are going to create some trouble because they are inaccurate with the way that volume is counted. So I think we've got enough of a list of missions, and we're going to go to create, and then sweep mesh is the one. So we're just using the default options, and right now it hasn't turned up because the mesh is actually separate, and it was invisible. So you can see right from the get-go we have some issues. I'm going to actually turn off mesh selection again. We'll select the actual NURBS curve that we were working with. And it's still connected to this sweep mesh creator 4. It might be under my face or just above it, I'm not sure. So we have a variety of different options that we can alter. We can change the shape to like something more rectangular. You can increase the number of iterations, curves. I think I'm going to leave the wireframe on here. Of course, you can scale the size of the tube. This one I want a thicker one for, so we can really, it feels like it's varying. It has this really cool feature called distribute. So if I click that, it actually makes a bunch of different versions, and they're all fitting around. You can determine how many instances there are. Like here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can keep going. You can make these huge big clusters. And this is going to be great because if you recall the interior of the Narcissus, there is a lot of tubing and pipes. That blasted salmon flange things, I think it has to do with the actual ships you chose, the Type S, while Iconic is often a starter ship. The small craft did really well, it seems, and can fit in many more playable scenarios. Adventure class ships book has some really cool designs, and I definitely like the Type S, working my way up to a Beowulf. So, yeah, I mean, if it was the actual deck plan, I think an Empress Minerva would be a good candidate, because it is, although it is curvy, especially at the front, it is, 2 decks and basically a ship built around a cargo hold. It is the sexier of the free traders, often being configured as a far trader. I think 300-ton ships, I mean, technically our Beowulf would be 300 tons with the volume it has. But I'd like to stay closer to... I mean, with Mongoose, technically, I can say, right, bugger the deck plans. Sorry, not bugger the deck plans. Bugger the volume and make to those specific deck plans. The thing is, with Mongoose, at least then, it's like, this is actually for this. But if I aesthetically had to choose, I would not make an Empress Minerva in the Mongoose style. I would not make their version of a Beowulf. And a part of that is just, I need to be in love with the design if I'm going to spend something like 5 or 6 months designing it. And when I'm doing ships, I mean, you guys saw how quick I knocked this design out, just the basic form of it, and that's because I have full creative freedom. Now, obviously, I'm not going to have that, and we're going to turn off distribute here because we do want just one pipe. But what we're going to do is manipulate the control vertexes here to sort of like see if we can sort out some of this ugliness. And I think part of it is coming from this, so I'm just going to freeform this. You can kind of see on the fly how it's changing and the shape is being sort of manipulated. We want to kind of straighten this angle out. Let's see. So I don't know if we can get this. I think a part of it is we just want to control this curve a little bit better. Something like that. And then what we can do is add additional. Here they don't have a count mode, or at least you might be able to change it based on that. You can optimize it so that it will remove any unnecessary rings. I'm not too worried about that. In fact, I want symmetry. But if we, for example, change this to 85% precision, we get a bunch more geometry. And I might even bump this up to 90. And what I'm kind of looking to avoid is this sort of intersection. So again, I'm going to go into my control vertexes And I'm just going to try and manipulate this so that we can get that curve being just a little bit softer. So I'm actually going to come up with this one, and we're going to try and base that curve more on this, I think. So we've still got that folding. We don't want the folding if we can avoid it. And the sort of way we do that is by making sure that these are far enough apart. So yeah, that looks alright. We are going to like add some features to this pipe. I'm still thinking this is going to be printed flat. Mostly because we have some odd angles here and we have this overhang. I'd rather print this in 2 separate parts instead of 3. Clive says I dare to do it as anti-hive lightning. That's never going to happen because of the scale of the ship. But let's see. The curve of the Mavara could be based on a Grand Cab. Yeah, I mean, possibly. We'll see. I know that there's some like Mega Traveler art of the Empress Minerva which looks really cool and that I could get into. But see, the thing that's getting frustrating is every single ship needs its own custom partitions and everything because of where the hull is shaped, and I don't really love that. With these ships, aside from the Shuttle, which will be a bit more custom, the No-Stromo is designed to be modular like some of our larger ships. So we really want to make sure, I'm going to drop this down, let's see, we need to move that over here-ish, but then this will be the one that we sort of get moving. So I basically want to get this on floor level, but I need, where is floor level is the question. There's too much going on here. We don't have enough going on here. Let me just reselect this geometry in some different angles and get it isolated. So basically, we want this control object to be along this line. So I'm just gonna lift this a little bit. It won't matter too much if it's too squishy. We can actually do some manual movements. We probably don't want it 100% exact here because it is going to look less organic. But if we, for example, move all 3 of these maybe just a little bit so that we've got, we're all right with it intersecting with this corner. So we do want it a bit further out. So I think we've got that one. Let's see, we've got this one as well. So we can just move it out a little bit closer. And make it feel like it's just, you know, sort of like sitting on the ground. And then we'll have it, I'm actually going to cut it in a few places and probably have it like this. I will extrude further out. So it's sort of like more like a box. And we'll actually split this pipe into 2 parts, I think, running along this ground. And this will basically be floor level, but I do want these things to sort of be modular. We might have like a power unit or something, the idea being that, you know, you need to be able to survive for a long time on this thing on like a nuclear battery or something. Aslan, Volga, and Zodoni designs are even more difficult. Yeah, they are. Definitely. And I would be severely cautious about that. So, again, basically, the more organic the design is, the longer it's going to take us to make. And that's not great. It's frustrating. I'm not saying like we can't do it, it's just, it's not pleasurable to do at all whatsoever. I'm actually going to bring these all up into this plane just to have a look and see where we're at with that. I think we will have created some issues here. But I kind of want this to disappear up inside. We could create maybe a little bit more uniqueness here, get more of a pattern. So yeah, like Traveler. Also, it depends. Like honestly, I haven't worked with Mongoose. I don't know if it makes sense. Traveler hasn't been making a lot of sense to us economically. Like the Smallcraft campaign, that's the first campaign I'd consider profitable. But if you consider the fact that there were 2 years of not really being profitable, and when I say profitable, I mean we actually made money on it. We've come mostly close to
Breaking even?
yeah, breaking even. I could say we have done more or less the entire time. Well, not true. Like there was 1 or 2 years where we were in the red, but we were not in the red to a point where it would affect our business. We had a rough year last year, to be honest, but we pulled through. But in part, that was also because Alvin could go and work on that film project. It was partially because of the fact that the Smallcraft campaign was focused on something smaller and more manageable than the larger ships we had worked on. So it all sort of ties in together. Okay, that looks a bit better. Let's just move that over so it should be straight. Get that one so it comes up. And again, we'll change the geometry so it looks a little bit like it'll be a bit lower down. Question is if we're going to... Okay, what's causing that? Oh, I was looking at the wrong pipe. That'll do it. So yeah, we just... Traveler has to make sense, and it has to be able to... the simple fact is it has to make more money than if we did a campaign by ourselves. That's kind of like the bottom line. And the only reason... I was looking at doing, a miniature campaign, and I wanted to check that, I wasn't treading on any toes. If I don't know what Mongoose's plans are. I just know that I don't want to take them off, or tread on any toes, that sort of thing. So for me, it was kind of like this sort of email out of the blue. I'm like, oh, okay, well that sounds interesting, but is it going to create issues? And I don't know the answer to that yet. I don't think it will. It sounds like better than I could have imagined. And maybe better to the point where it's like, okay, well, let's continue pursuing this. Let's, ultimately maybe we will do another ship, although we'll choose something that makes sense. And what I would like to do is, like, if there is a campaign where there is a, I don't know if Pirates of Draenix or something, but a central ship that is a part of that campaign, then, that makes a lot more sense to do, right? Than just some random adventure class ship. Because ultimately it would be best if we can just tie this all into existing Mongoose campaigns. And that way we're in a situation where that becomes an advantage, right? It makes sense. It's like a pipeline. It's like you're playing this campaign from Mongoose. Let's get this ship and get it for our group because we're going to be using it over and over again throughout the course of this adventure. Or campaign, even better, when you're potentially going to be spending years with it. And still today, I really cannot think of another active role-playing game today, other than Traveler, that uses... Traveler doesn't use miniatures per se, but it is certainly designed in such a way that it's miniature friendly. And in all the groups I've played in, we've used miniatures to visualize combat in Traveller. So it makes more sense there to be in an edition of a game which actually, uses miniatures. And therefore, obviously, our ships are a natural extension of that. But that's also the thing. Our ships are dependent on miniatures. And we did poll the Traveller forums on, Facebook groups. Can I get Mongoose to market my ships? I don't know yet. This is very early. But I can tell you, if we renew the license in 2025, I imagine it will be a lot more tied in with Mongoose stuff than it currently is. So they have said they love what we're doing. I've explained, what our situation is like. The STL printing is not likely to change too much for us. I think the thing is, there's huge growth. More and more players and groups are actually getting access to 3D printers. I think the bulk of new ones are probably SLA machines rather than FDM machines, but I think we're going to see it turning into this sort of okay, it was this wow fad thing to print miniatures, and now people have realized, resin requires all of these chemicals, it's nasty, has good results, but it's finicky, it's not really like you buy a HP printer and, you put paper in it and start printing. And I don't think it's going to be like that unless there is some radical new technology that doesn't currently exist on the market today. So, it's always going to be niche, and it will continue to grow probably, although I wouldn't be surprised if it slows a little bit. The faster new FDM printers, I'm hoping, are going to be an attraction into that area, but miniatures are still not, you still would want to do them with resin, right? And then there's the whole thing of we're not specialists in miniatures. We have to subcontract that out to sculptors. But that also means, and this is one of the things that's attractive to me, that we can work with the sculptors. We work with, if we're able to use Mongoose designs for the character miniatures, which is what we've discussed, and I've had confirmed that they're keen for that as much as we are, because it'll just synergize together, right? That it will basically be a case of we can send that art to our sculptors. We can front the production costs, but it also means we can focus on vehicles and smaller ships. And even our own projects, now, we'll be able to manage that project. I'll be doing some work on the vehicles, but I'll also be fairly free to actually run the campaign and to be able to work on No-Stromo on the side. So it won't be as full-time as full-on, and I need to work on my work-life balance. Last year I was supposed to take 4 weeks of holidays. I ended up taking 2 because I was just too stressed about getting enough work done for what became our small craft campaign. So I did get to take some time off when I went to Australia, but visiting relatives, traveling all across the country and that sort of thing, it's not really a holiday. I know some people will probably be going and I know there's probably some Americans that are like, what? You greedy bastard. You're upset with only 2 weeks. And then a trip to Australia. I get why an American might be upset by that, but also I've said it many times, but aside from the mental health benefits of taking a break, in a creative job, you really need to recharge those creative batteries. And if you can't do that, you're in a situation where you're just not productive. And I think Albin would agree with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you need that time away to get new ideas, to get inspired. And it is a case of like, if you know the old Sims games, like SimCity and all of that, how they have this different like time speeds. Well, if you don't have your batteries charged, it's like you're at 0.5 speed. So you go to work and you sit down in front of Maya and you might grumble and groan. And you get the work done, but the thing is, if you have your batteries recharged, you just fly through this kind of work. You get in the zone, listen to some music that inspires you, and you end up in a position where all of a sudden, you know, a week's gone by, but you have a finished product in a fraction of the time you would have spent if you were really getting bored and not feeling it and all this other stuff. So, yeah. Clive, I'm struggling to get my 6 weeks of annual holidays and flex time in. I think this is becoming a common issue with a lot of employers. I know I at least tell Albin to go home when I think he's been here too long. And people, you know, have quite flexible schedules actually. But I've seen that, like with my wife's work, for example. It seems like they don't any longer respect, you know, a 5-day work week, or, you know, not contacting people when it's their day off, or they're not supposed to be on the clock for a while longer, that sort of thing. Like, I think it's becoming more of an issue. So hopefully that changes soon for a lot of people. Just going to manually move this, so we're just going to generate a hole here. Today is one of the days where I might go over just a little bit. Normally finish this at 4 o'clock. We're at about the 10-minute range, but I'm actually having a good time today. I want to talk some more and actually, you know, get something close to finished. So before I go and fine tune this, I'm going to go back to my sweep creator. I usually just put 24 caps on. Sorry, not caps, sides. I might do 32 on this one because it's a larger pipe. And this will just make it look a bit smoother when it's actually printed. Let's see. Brian Havens says, what is this break you speak of? A user lose paid time off and hard to fit it in, so much lose. Really? Use or lose? That would be considered theft here. 100%. You should be getting compensated for that. When you, for example, leave a job and you've got saved up holidays or whatever, the company has to pay all of that out to you before you leave the job. It's like they might force you to take the time off or force you to take the payment so it doesn't accumulate too much. But yeah, not in Sweden, my friend. So that's one of those things. I try to be as fair as possible, even with a small business. We're all struggling with this current economy as well. But I don't know. I try to be fair. I'm not the best boss, but I'm not the worst, I don't think.
Definitely not.
Definitely not, says Albin. Yeah, it's not like he's paid to be here. Just saying, you're maybe not the best example.
Oh.
So we can do a few more cool things with this, such as, like, you could twist it, and you can kind of see it getting this pattern here. So it's sort of twisting. We don't really want that per se. We can taper the curve. So you can see here, like, it gets thicker and thinner at different areas. And actually, if we move this to smooth, you can kind of see here that it's thicker on this end, thinner on the other. But you can actually sort of, like, get this to be a little bit wavy in different places. This isn't something I'm going to do now. I just wanted to show it off. And I'm not too happy with the corners here. Again, if we optimize, you can see how it would optimize here. But basically, I want this to be like a thick sort of ribbed pipe, I think.
I'm sorry.
Dude, what's going on today? You can, of course, align it in different ways to the actual baseline, so you can kind of change the position and that sort of thing. You can do offsets of where you want it. So there is quite a lot of customization in here. Transformation, you can scale it, obviously. We've got it set to 1 at the moment. And again, you can even do like a custom shape. This one isn't showing anything, but you could select like a face, and it would, if you like made a pipe and then cut a little bit out of it so it had a little slit in it, you could make it work that way, for sure. So I'm gonna actually cancel that and leave it as is, because I know the kind of pipe that I want. I want to set the pipe kind of like these ones here. So now that I'm happy with the overall shape, I'm actually going to delete the history, which means it's no longer going, well, let's see how it reacts. So I'm just going to grab, I'm sure there is a faster process than this, but I just want to grab every other ring. And this isn't going to be completely evened out, but at the same time, you know, if this is some kind of plastic hose, there's going to be a little bit of squash and stretch in it anyway. Are you laughing because it's like an animation term or what?
No, plastic hose and squash and stretch.
Oh my god, you dirty, dirty man. Yeah. Albert needs a girlfriend. He's on the market, ladies.
Need to consider my words, I guess.
It might get you in line. We are on the internet. We could get cancelled. You never know.
Yeah.
Mongoose is like, nope.
I saw this stream the other day.
Who is this Albin? We have concerns.
Yes. We need to negotiate our contracts.
We're changing the terms of the deal.
Oh.
No, we're altering the terms of the deal. Pray that we don't alter them anymore. So, with this, I'm going to make this the thick version, because what I'm going to do is an extrusion here. So I'm going to just go minus 0.1. And you can see we have gotten this lovely sort of ribbing in it. It is stretched in places. What I'm actually going to do, though, is increase the offset just by a bit. 0.05 maybe. Actually, we could go all the way to the line here, so I'm going to see if we can bring this close to 0.1. So 0.6, looks like we can go to 0.7. Something like that. A little bit of intersection won't kill anything. But that gives us that little bit of, like, if I turn off, let's isolate this again. Let's put on the lighting, and then let's just change this to a sort of like a different color. And we've got this really cool sort of, the piping is meant to sort of capture that feel of like the sort of like biomechanical feel that Giga had on his work. See, there's a little bit of intersection there, but I'm not really worried about it. So that is a cool way we've made a pipe. We've made it kind of look like it is, you know, two different things. We'll probably want to change this into some kind of pump or recycler or something. I don't know. I'm just imagining in my head what these might be actually used for. But I do feel it does make it feel a little bit more interesting. Let's see. So there's some sag if it's not supported. Yeah, so we'll be going back and adjusting some of that. What I'm wondering is how well will this break if we move the support nodes. So I'm going to the control vertexes here. Let's move them. Hey, it's working anyway.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. And relieving.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, looking good. So I'm just going to save this up right now, and I don't know if I'm going to save this entirely or not. Instead of hard pipe or soft toes. Let's see. Yes, I'm using Autodesk Maya 2024. I don't recommend it. I think if you're going to learn 3D, learn Blender. It's cheap and it's good. And it's in active development, and the people that actually develop it give a fuck.
Yay.
I think we're far enough into the stream where swearing doesn't matter so much. So yeah, we've got our block out for the interior done. Let's take the top off. We might have to add a few objects to that. But you can kind of see in the layout the older style. These are still not the oldest style here. This standing version is the original mesh that we had. There are a number of problems with it. It needed support. If I was cleverer, I would have made it so you just print this all on its side, and it would have looked alright. We have this, like, it's not clear how it opens. I don't know if this is going to print well yet. I don't know if these pipes are too skinny to actually turn up or what the deal will be. So I'm going to be doing some experimentation before I kill those tubes off. And we are going to need to add some kind of built-in supports, whether it be like we just, make some extrusions and cover this up. Technically we could have like a step or two going up, just something that you could put your foot on if you need to swing your hips over the edge or that sort of thing. Yeah, if you think Blender's complicated, Maya's probably even worse. Mostly because this software has been around in one form or another since 1998. And some of that original code is no doubt buried in there. So I do want miniatures that are going to fit this. I did another one where it will fit our Traveller miniatures, which are laying down, but it does feel bulky and not really alien-like. But yeah, you can see there's some more objects here that I will need to sort of add to the layout. But we've got our layout. I'm thinking like a suit room. Most of the machinery for the ship must be either built into the engines or in the floor or ceiling. I'm building it modular with the thought of, we might want to put a stretch goal for a turret port or, a top airlock or something like that. We are also going to widen this in certain points. So it is important that, here we've gone squarish again, because the part, if you want to lengthen the ship, it's going to be at this point, here or here. Widening this part in the middle. So you can kind of see the engines are straight. No wonder I haven't been able to select this. So these are getting close to something that we could technically just put a few more open log clip ports into and get out there. But what I really want to work on is the cockpit, making something so that when we render this thing, because if we're launching on the 26th of April, and it is now the 15th, technically you're meant to have like 2 to 3 months lead up before a Kickstarter. We're not going to have that, and I'm not looking for a massive amount of money for this campaign. In fact, my plan is to sell the shuttle for a mere €20, and then increase it substantially on my mini factory, to the point where only on like massive sales might you get the default version at that kind of price. So underpricing to get more people into our stuff, I guess. And then, the larger ship, which, it's twice the length, but 8 times the volume. This one we won't have finished. I don't think we're going to keep this window. This one we won't have finished for printing at the time. But it should, in theory, I'm worried now because it didn't really replicate the way I wanted it to. It just might mean we need to do more custom pieces, basically. Yeah, so what do we need for this scene, to bring things in, we've got all this workshop stuff here. I've actually prepared a scene that I'm going to actually reference in. Because, and referencing is a way that you can basically import a separate file, and then you basically, in an animation pipeline, for example, say you're a rigger, so you've been given a model of a character, you rig it up for animation, but then you want to make sure that the animator can't stuff up your rig. You get them to reference it in, and then they're not actually changing the reference, they're changing like a copy of that. So if anything breaks, you might even make it like specify what you can do with it. Now this can be used in all sorts of things. You can do it for other scenes. In this case, I've got one called Temp Interior Workshop, which is not a great name. I want to make sure this isn't an import, so it might actually bring in all of its annoying different shaders. So there is something to say for doing this in a different way, but I'm going to click reference, and basically that's going to pull in a bunch of objects that I've gathered from a bunch of different scenes. We've got some control panels that came from the sort of like shuttle pod here that we might repurpose as, you know, some control systems. We're not going to use all of them because I need to. We need to make these more like cathode ray tubes, and obviously the seating, we might use this as a base seat since it already is kind of alienish. We have some wall panels here. These are from the Stalwart control panels. Like, I'm just bringing in stuff that we could recycle and reuse. We're not necessarily going to use that in every. We're not going to reuse everything, but like lockers, doors, control panels, sort of like this pump system. We're just going to look and see what we can recycle, and a couple of different machines that we had in Odyssey. These look really cool in this lighting, actually. So this lighting I was trying to emulate a little bit this scene from Aliens. I've just got my Disney Plus account here. So not quite the light coming from the same sort of area, but this sort of like harsher light where you can barely see the outlines. It's all very faint. And then I just used, it's been lit by some manually placed directional lights. Directional lights, the difference between them and a lot of other lights is they continue forever in the scene. So until it gets blocked by something. And actually, the larger your scene is, the more pixelated you will see the shadows become. You can kind of see these issues here. So if I, for example, I don't know if it's good enough just to isolate it, but if I closed all my workshop stuff and turned off that layer, so I'm going to turn off my semiotics, I'm going to turn off the large Narcissus, I'm going to turn off the Narcissus workshop and add this item to it. If we zoom back in, you can see that the shadows are a lot softer and larger, so and sharper, like more accurate. But again, if we turn the workshop on, see how they become inaccurate. So it's all based on like basically projecting the lighting. Oh, and actually, if we delete those, it will get even better. So let me zoom in again to this example shadow, delete, and even sharper, more accurate. So basically, Maya tries to restrict it to the geometry that's displayed at the time. And this ball here is actually a light, it's not geometry. So basically it's looking at basically measuring the length of the ship, the width of the ship, the height of the ship, and basically saying, okay, we have this many pixels to do shadows with. So that's a little tidbit. If you want it to look nice and sharp, it's based on the scale and size of the geometry on the screen at that time. But yeah, we do want these models, so I'm going to add back in this. You should see that the shadows have gotten a bit wonky again. And what I might do is just like, when I've got the ones I want copied, I will duplicate this instead. So technically, I think if I now remove this, yeah, we get to keep that model. But what it has done though is deleted the shaders that it didn't have in already. So this looks like we had an issue with the screens, we had an issue with a couple of different colors. This is an argument for importing rather than referencing, but I just wanted to show that off. We do have, I think we're going to delete it and we're just going to import it, to be honest. The referencing thing, it was an alright idea, but because of the way we're going to cut things up, I think I'd just rather have it in the scene. But for example, say you wanted to put in Cerberus or another ship, where we could create a reference version of that. You could import it in, you could move it around, but it's not actually saving that to the scene. So all of the geometry in this scene that we've referenced in will be preserved in that Maya file. So it's not adding 600 gigabytes to this one. Sorry, not gigabytes, megabytes. That would have been insane. Imagine the autosaves. You wouldn't actually get any work done. So I'm just going to remove the reference. So remove reference, we'll remove it all together, and technically all of the shaders and everything that came in with it, any geometry that wasn't in the original has disappeared. So this should still be a bit of a mess in here. Let's see, we want this is my my shaders. And what I'm going to do instead is go File, Import, and in the import options, I want to make sure we've got Remove Duplicate Shading Networks, because I know there are some shaders in here that we already have. I know there are some that technically are the same, it's just Maya's too dumb to realize. And this is an issue, but I go Import. Maya also does something really stupid where all of the new objects get this name attached to the front of it. This one is like Temp Interior Workshop Group 1, Group 2, all of that sort of stuff. So technically, we probably want to just go grab this name, and then if you get the bonus tools, which is a separate download, there's something called Pattern Rename. And if we just take all of these new objects, and actually I want to expand all of these. You can hold Shift to expand the entire row. So that we can select all these objects. We're going to have issues with shaders as well, and fortunately I took out the layers. See, the thing is, I could have gone back to that scene and added additional materials if I wanted it included. But, you know, I might not save this scene. We'll see how it goes. So if I just go reload here, we get all of these names with the temp interior bullshit in front of them. So if we just add that prefix, it's going to search through and replace all of that with basically nothing. So if I go rename, it changes all of the names of those objects, removing that particular string. Now there are additional issues. There's some empty objects and that sort of thing. I could probably... I don't think I'm going to save this at the moment. I just want to move this into position and sort of show what I mean. So basically all I'm trying to do is map out a rough plan of the interior. And then I'm going to look at a bunch of different art and reference material from like the movie and from Alien Isolation maybe. And the goal is not to copy straight out, but to recreate the feel. This kind of like, if you look at our control panels, this gives you some idea about how large it is. Now, there are plenty of incongruencies with the Narcissus in Alien. And in fact, the filmed version of the interior, and there was a sort of like squashed version. So the version you see with the model, reverse thrusting free of the No-Stromo at the end, is a separate model, whereas the interior is kind of based more around the squashed version. There's a forced perspective version, where basically this front looks more like, let's just move the pivot point to the back here and get it to connect. And I'd say it's like about 50%. So if I just scale this in the, let's see, Z, so we put 0.5, this is what it looked like, sort of squashed up, right? Forced perspective when it was front on. So that means, like, technically there's a lot of issues in here. Like, this is not the exact same model as that ship anyway. But I think I would want, by getting a sense of scale by importing this stuff in, it looks like we need to kind of like go up a little bit, just the same way as in the small craft, there's kind of a step up. So the pilots would actually have a raised platform, so you would be seated here somewhere. So these windows are actually functional. Because if this was down at floor level, and I think we put the floor at the correct height, I'm not entirely sure. I think it's at like regular floor height, so there is, like, you can see right here, if this is where your head is at, you cannot see forward at all. If we move that back up, you're just a little bit higher, you can kind of see over the nose if you sort of stood up, just enough. Like, obviously you can have sensors and other things, we might go even higher than this. I think we had it somewhere like there. Don't want it to intersect with the windows, but like you're sitting in this sort of position. This feels more like a cockpit, right? Like, it would still be annoying how thick these are if you're actually piloting it, but yeah, this gives us an impression of like where we want to be, and also placement of the panels does affect where we want to be having these stations at. So it might have felt more natural to have these spaced out with like an inch in between, but then you end up with these struts in between. So it makes sense for this shuttle to have the control panels in the front. But even like, if I now turn on the top, just having those control panels visible through the window does a lot to make the shot more interesting. So if let's see, if this crashes, I'm going to end the stream. If I render this, it crashed. Yeah. So basically, I think we'll leave things there. I'm not even kidding. Like, we're at a point where it's going to stop anyway. So I will open this back up again. But my point was I was going to render it with and without the control panel and show you what the difference is and how much it can alter the look of things. But in any case, I hope people do have a lovely weekend. And next week we should be going live, I think, with the sign-up page for Starship VI, The Sole Survivor, coming out on the 26th of April. That is 426. And yeah, we need to get going on that one. More information about Traveller coming in as I confirm things with Matthew over at Mongoose. Again, tentative talks. We'd like to do it. It's not really secret, but the proper official announcement has not come as of yet. Just so you know, but yeah. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week. We'll be back same time, same channel. Bye, guys.